when we come to sit formal meditation, aiming usually to experience some peacefulness, hoping to experience some peacefulness, oftentimes we meet with energies, thoughts, ways of thinking, habits that swell up in the mind, and they're not very peaceful. These root kilesa, greed, anger, irritation, hatred, the anger spectrum, and delusion have been affecting our minds for a very, very long time. When we increase our efforts in meditation, sometimes something that can happen is that the mind gets more sensitized, and it can seem almost as if there's more of these things. And that's not the case. These energies are bubbling away, or if we just chanted the fire sermon, so there's this flames which are flickering away almost constantly. And if we are not making an effort in meditation practice, then these energies will be pushing us around. You may be going on adventures or going shopping or surfing the internet, distracting yourself with entertainment, but the energies, the craving for sensuality, attachment to becoming irritated, reactive, angry, wanting to become these same energies, sometimes just wanting to get lost, avoiding the noble truth of unsatisfactoriness through distraction. So when we come to meditate, it's a very noble task, and we often find that there's unpleasantness. And this can be disheartening. Want to be peaceful, and you see restless thoughts, craving, irritation, doubts. We have to train ourselves in meditation to understand that being aware of a thought and having some ability to step back and be aware of the quality of the thought, that this is actually already development. Because in daily life, for the untrained mind, oftentimes people don't even notice what they're thinking. They're just really lost. And then when something affects them, something they like, they see, they crave, often act on it. Something irritates them, they act on it, get themselves in all sorts of trouble. So simply knowing that there's thinking, simply knowing that the energy under the thinking is sensual, craving related, or irritation, this is development. And then when we have a meditation object such as the breath, we train in giving the interest to the meditation object. And this is like a wedge between giving the interest to the thinking, grasping a thought, picking up a thought, thinking the next thought. We give the interest to the meditation object. What happens is, if we can be patient and we keep doing this, there will be periods where the mind does settle on the meditation object. A basic sense of the beginning, the middle, the ending of an in-breath, the beginning, the middle, the ending of an out-breath. A lovely sense of feeling centered, a lovely sense of flow. And when we are aware of the breath, it has a pacifying effect upon the mind. When we can be aware of the breathing, tend to have tranquil feelings of coolness, contentment can arise, well-being. In the beginning stages, sometimes the sitting has some peace, and sometimes the sittings have no peace. Sometimes you might get what people would refer to as a great meditation, where there were 10 or 15 or 20 minutes of peacefulness, clarity, not much movement. But we shouldn't pay too much attention to the short-term results of each individual sit. We have to see it in the context of a training. Those occasions where you have 20 minutes of peacefulness with not much thinking were conditioned by the previous day's practice, where you patiently endured with a lot of thinking and didn't experience much peace. This is the quality of mindfulness that slowly, with consistent practice, gets sharper. And this quality of mindfulness is something that people don't oftentimes misunderstand. This idea of one can decide to simply be mindful, to just be mindful, to abide in awareness. Actually, we can try, but the problem is if our habitual mindfulness is weak and not very strong, then we don't have much mindfulness to actually apply. Mindfulness is a quality that does get stronger through training. And so we train in being mindful. This is the point of having a meditation object, the point of having a regular meditation practice, is that we commit to a period of time where we train in trying to be mindful of one thing. The wonderful thing about the breath is that it is in the middle of experience. Right there, where your body and your mind is, the breath is in the middle of it all. And so, in simply trying to be aware of the breath, you will oftentimes notice the thoughts. As the mind becomes a little more peaceful, you notice the energy under the thoughts. As a little bit more clarity arises, there's a general sense for meditators. You know whether it's wholesome or whether it's unwholesome or neutral, not particularly wholesome or unwholesome. And so through this act of training with a meditation object for a set period of time consistently, you become more aware of the content of your thoughts, the energies behind them. At the same time, you're not feeding them. You're simply observing them for that period of time, putting some space between, identifying with them. I think it's very important to understand a wonderful thing I read one of Ajahn Chah's Dharma talks is, he said, 50% of practice is knowing what one should let go of and not being able to. 50% of practice. And this is, for a great arahant to be giving us this clue, I think is enormously helpful. Because sometimes you're sitting and there's an unwholesome thought, or there's an unskillful fantasy, and sometimes you give the attention to the meditation object, stop feeding it, and it goes away. Other times you really try to give the attention to the meditation object, you try to see it as a thought, and yet the mind becomes seduced, falls into the unskillful fantasy. It's important to understand that it's in the trying to let it go, in the recognizing that something's unskillful and trying to let it go. This is what is conditioning the capacity to be able to in the future. So the peaceful meditation that you may have today was conditioned by the previous month's effort at trying to meditate. And we can extrapolate this, understand that the efforts that you make this lifetime are going to have consequences, very good consequences for any future lives that you may need to have. When we think of the great teachers in our tradition, the teachers who I know, the Thai masters, Thanathananan, Rumpapiek, Thanathantam, these practitioners had jhana samadhi as lay people. Something that many, many people want to have some experience of. What's it like to have the first jhana, the second jhana? What's it like to have no hindrances at all? What's it like just to have stillness and peace as the object for hours? These great bhikkhus had experience of that before they were even monks. So we have to understand that that was conditioned by previous lifetimes of effort. And Tanajananand frequently says, we should, for those who have the aspiration to be arahants, one should aspire to try to enter the stream within this lifetime. What often happens, though, is that people put forth a diligent effort for a period of time and then get a bit frustrated and relax their efforts. It's a bit of fits and starts, stopping and starting. 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. But Tanajanananda says actually, the degree to which you put forth an effort is literally having a consequence to how many rebirths there are. Even if one practices diligently and tries really hard and doesn't become a stream enterer this lifetime, the effort that you made may have reduced 10 lives. It's really valuable to give some thought to this sometimes, simply to understand that no effort is ever wasted. In terms of generating a resilient, stable quality of presence of mind, mindfulness, clarity that can be applied to knowing forms as forms, feelings as feelings, thoughts as thoughts, dhammas as dhammas. This develops through consistency. So, understanding why we should practice is not that difficult. Understanding a method, learning how to use a method, is also not that difficult. I think the most difficult thing for Buddhist practitioners is consistency. And it is also, unfortunately, probably at least one of the most important factors for whether or not one develops in this path. Something that mindfulness, different teachers describe it differently. Sometimes it's described as right recollection. So recollecting that which should be recollected, that means being aware of the footsteps, being present in the body throughout postures, knowing when thoughts arise, recognizing if they're unwholesome and unwholesome. That's right recollection. Avidya, ignorance, is referred to as forgetting. So when we don't have right recollection, we're forgetting. We're forgetting to place the attention in a place that is skillful. And when we don't place the attention in a place which is skillful, unskillfulness usually arises quite quickly. There's also various lists that we can look at. We can look at the 16 upakilesa, dark qualities that affect the mind. A nice simple list is the 5 hindrances: sensual craving, irritation and aversion, sleepiness, dullness, restlessness, worry, and doubt. When we allow the hindrances to be in the mind and don't kind of put up a wholesome struggle to keep the mind relatively wholesome, if we allow the hindrances to take over the mind, then during that time the mind is dark. It's another analogy. We can see things in terms of clarity and brightness or darkness. So when we allow the mind to be fully immersed in hindrances, those 5 qualities, during that time the mind is dark. And when we allow the mind to be dark, we're feeding the darkness. Loka, the world, is another word for the world, is loka, which is darkness. when we allow the hindrances to overcome the mind, we're allowing the mind to be dark, and then the mind becomes worldly. It means that you are a being in a world, a worldly being. And that means having to be associated with the unloved, separated from the loved, birth, aging, sickness and death, the whole catastrophe. But when we apply right mindfulness and clear comprehension consistently, then we start to experience right collectedness. Then the mind becomes clear and bright. I know some teachers who have what is called or referred to as the divine eye. That means they can see through their physical eyeballs, and they can also see through their mind's eye. They see into a more subtle parallel reality. And these great monks, simply by looking at a practitioner, can tell how much samadhi they have and how much mindfulness they have and how much wisdom they have. How? If a person has samadhi, the mind will be bright. If a person has samadhi but not much wisdom, the brightness is cloudy. If a person has mindfulness, concentration and wisdom functioning at the same time, the person has a bright, crystal clear quality of radiance around their body. So a great meditation master can just glance at a practitioner and see how mindful are they today, how much samadhi is there now, or how thick are the hindrances, how dark is the mind, how clouded, how grey. So this is why we need to be consistent, because there's not much point taking one step forward and one step back. If we take one step forward and one step back, you don't have to be a genius to understand that you're not going to get anywhere. But if you steadily take one more step and one more step and one more step, and this is the hardest thing to do in practice, I believe, and I've observed, is keeping up the momentum. But it really is what we have to do. We have to be determined not to let ignorance, not to let samsara regain any territory. It's kind of like a holy war. The real holy war is inside, in your mind, between the 5 spiritual powers, faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration and wisdom, and the 5 hindrances. The degree to which we tolerate the hindrances, allow the hindrances to dominate the mind, is the degree to which we are attached and bound to the world. The degree to which we cultivate the 5 spiritual powers, we have our faith in the Buddha, have our faith in our meditation methods, have our faith in our own potential. We put forth consistent effort, giving rise to energy. We apply that energy to maintaining our mindfulness, right mindfulness as the foundation for right collectedness, concentration. These qualities of mindfulness and right collectedness allowing us, supporting the mind to see things according to their actual characteristics, because that's what presence of mind does. Mindfulness and clear comprehension see things according to their true nature. Delusion exists upon a foundation of ignorance. Avidya is ignorance. Moha is delusion. When we are ignorant of the truth, the way things actually are, delusion has to be present. But when we keep applying right mindfulness, then we see things more clearly. The body really is a body. It's not beautiful. It's not necessarily disgusting either. It's elements. It's a form. It's made up of the 4 elements. We have clarity, we recognize that's a hindrance. This is a wholesome quality. That's an unwholesome quality. Lord Buddha says of the 5 spiritual powers, when cultivated, made much of, they lead to the deathless and merge in the deathless. So these are things that we can trust and that we can feel good about embracing. So I just wanted to offer a little bit of encouragement to remind people that whatever effort we make is valuable, and if you really want the best results from your investment, then you need to be investing consistently. Keep chipping away at the ignorance and the delusion. Keep applying mindfulness and clear comprehension, seeing things according to the truth more and more consistently. When you do that, the periods of peacefulness will be longer, deeper, more nourishing, more rewarding, and that peace will be a good foundation for being able to investigate this body, these elements, what arises upon sense contact, how we create a self and a world, and then we learn how to not do that, how to not keep creating a self and a world, how to contemplate not self. So I wish you every success in your efforts. I'd like to encourage you, keep cultivating the 5 spiritual powers, keep practicing to learn how to abandon the 5 hindrances, and I hope you experience great peace and liberating insight through your practice.